Just getting the sound off.
You charge 45, something like that?
45.
Yeah, there's more than that.
45. Right. Hey everyone. I go by the name of Daryl as a service these days. Seems to resound quite nicely with Azure people and folk. Welcome to our recap of Microsoft Ignite at the, it's quite a mouthful, isn't it? The Microsoft Cloud and Infrastructure User Group. Still looking for any good suggestions to shorten that and be, we're still quite encompassing of all those technologies, but we've got to find a better way of saying this.
Cloud services.
Cloud and services, yeah.
No, just cloud services.
Cloud services. Yeah, but is it
CS.
more than Microsoft? And so on and so forth. So we could have a whole session on that. We are usually hosted by Nick, Alan, myself, and Aben. Aben is still, I guess, on leave because his wife had a baby a little while back. Nick is
About to have a baby.
about to have a baby. What is it with this group? Is anyone else pregnant here? Yeah? Really? Are you expecting?
No.
Just
Joining in the excitement.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's we could make so many jokes about that and being scalable. And, anyway, yeah. So let's go through some usual housekeeping. But first of all, yeah. So we have some tags on the door if you need to use the restrooms, as the Americans call them. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself unable to get back in. The doors lock, or could be locked now. I think so. So grab that key. The men's is right at the far end. The ladies is just the closer end on the other side of the elevators. And remember to bring it back. So who's attending this user group for the first time tonight? Yes. Always a show of hands. Always at least 5 or 6. I don't know what our subscription or following is at the moment. It's well over 1,200, I think. We never get 1,200 along on a night for some reason. But we often get a drop-off rate. You'd probably see some stickers out there. I guess another question. So we've got some Azure people in here. If you're here for Azure kind of content. Yeah. Any developers? Okay, we kind of cover some developer kind of content, more around DevOps, I guess, is where we kind of brush in. Any productivity people and Office 365 people, a few. And who else is, what is the other audience? There's a few hands that didn't show, maybe you're just too shy. Who here is from Microsoft? Behave yourselves. All right. Yeah, so we're going to recap Ignite, at least try to. Then following that, we have Daniel Scott Rainsford, who's going to cover some of the Azure announcements from Microsoft Ignite. Alan's going to cover some productivity announcements for Ignite. If we've got a little time, we could look at Teams, or we can fold it into Alan's thing. But I'm going to kick it off with what is it like to attend Ignite, because it is a little bigger than the New Zealand event, and yeah, I'll try and capture that. So one of my first items there was this interesting thing that LinkedIn was doing for the event. I noticed it because I was going to the event. I don't know how they added me to this list or whatever, but I got offered this beta, which, let me just see if I can plug this in and explain it. And we should probably change this so we can share screens. That's the other thing that we do here, is we also try and live stream to YouTube, so that those who can't attend it can have a look-see at it. Come on. Yep. Good, passing on through. Is that up there? That's good. Cool. LinkedIn. So it was acquired by Microsoft a little while back. They've had a good presence at the Inspire event, and they did something quite cool in terms of the Expo booth. How many people have got a photo on their Ignite, their LinkedIn profile that is over a year or two old? Yeah. Are you proud of it? Yeah. And it's because we don't have access to these great photographers that make us look awesome and have all this nice lighting. Hopefully we don't grab like social photos, and it's not professional. But what they did with their booth was they had professional photographers, and they were rifling people through, even giving them a bit of a touch up with makeup, and taking some nice photos. So one other thing that they did, if you have a look at it's my network, and in the top, in the middle there's this thing called Find Nearby, and it's off. Before Ignite, they were running something of a beta where what you could do is you go in there, you turn it on, and basically it would discover people around you that also had that as part of the LinkedIn app. I did have a quick ask around to see if someone had that feature on their phone, and whether their LinkedIn app was up to date. I think the only reason I'm seeing it is because I opted in early, but the cool thing was that I could go in here and I could see people attending Ignite, and I wouldn't have to grab their business card. Now, Smart Cookies also said, well, what I do is I just open up LinkedIn, I hand it over to the person, say type your name in, and then I'll just connect. So there's always an easier way, right? But it's good. It's a good idea. Pity I couldn't demo it. But going further on, I just wanted to show you something of the magnitude of the event. Let me get into here. Good-o. Right, so there was some audio to this, a nice backing track, but I won't make it too much. It was held at the Orange County Convention Centre. There are a number of different buildings that are used for conventions there. So they have a north-south building, there's this one here which is in the Hyatt, and there's also the west building. So the event was massive. Obviously, lucky enough to stay in the Hyatt, so I'm also showing you some of the walk over and just outside the nice fountain. But what I'm getting to, if I just race on through here, is probably the danger going to Christmas during Ignite. You can see that there's this massive concourse that went over from the north-south building. There's the Hyatt in the middle, and then the concourse continues down to the west building. Right? And this is it sunrise. So actually, there. So the reason that was a lot of fun is because in the north-south building, that's where the keynote was held. It closed off pretty quickly because there was limited seats. I'll show you soon some of the footage from there. But it ran late, about 10 or 15 minutes late, and then all the tech notes were in the west building. So imagine thousands of people trying to come across this concourse, getting over the west building. Some of them are jaywalking, some of them are, jumping over car bonnets and pretending to be Miami Vice or whatever, because we're in Florida, whatever. And yeah, it was that kind of struggle all the way through the week. So always this kind of feedback about it's such a massive event. You've combined all these conferences into one. How do you plan that kind of thing so that people can attend sessions and still make the sessions that they plan to attend? So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Now, a bunch of buses that were always dropping people off from different hotels. We're coming up the steps and all. We've got to go through the door. There's an atrium here. This is only one entrance, but it goes into the expo hall. We've got these lovely purple shirted people that guide you around and help you and answer your questions and give you maps and things like that. And they cheer absolutely enthusiastically. Woohoo! Welcome to breakfast. But this is just a small view of one of the eating halls with hundreds of tables and the expo centre. There's another 3 slides on the back. Again, really enthusiastic. Free drinks everywhere. You get the idea. Right, so that's trying to give you something of an idea of the size of the event. There was on day 1 this nice little salute to Kiwis. Kiwis over in the States are kiwi fruit. So if you say you're a Kiwi, they'll look at you funny. But they did have kiwi fruit in the lunchbox on the first day, and there were 23 people that attended, and I was one of them. And I also want to proudly say that a Kiwi also put together, or Kiwi company put together the My Ignite app. So Gavin Barron, if you know him from Intergen, he's over there permanently, and they did a great job again. So with some various different technical difficulties that he had to work through, but good job basically from there. Let's see, I was going to show you a couple of other things. So I did get a nice little gift before Ignite because I shouted myself a nice prezi because I turned 40 and got a 360 degree camera. So I just want to show you, I managed to get into press seating, which was kind of nice. I'll blow that up a bit. Loading.
Here in the conversation, we see a designer and an engineer. You'll see we have a couple of cameras.
This should be scrolling around. Let me try this
again.
again.
What we call spectator view, which is actually publicly available and hosted on GitHub. These cameras allow you as an audience.
It's a 360 degree view, and I'm showing you the top of my head, so that's a lot of fun. There we go. Right, so I thought this was a bit of fun. So this was the keynote session where Ford was being used as a case study for HoloLens, and they were showing off the capabilities of looking at cars and talking about designs and working across the world with all this kind of augmented reality, which was quite cool. And here I am capturing that in 360 degrees. So that was a bit of fun. But yeah, a massive audience. So that's what your keynotes look like. Walk 3 football fields one way. This is, we're not all wearing red shirts at the back there. That's just the lighting, but it's far off in the distance. A lot of people. What else have we got?
So did the camera just like a GoPro on your head? Or?
I stuck it on a selfie stick, and it just captures everything all at once. So it's quite handy. Another one to give you an idea of the expo hall. Go. Alright. So our expo hall, tons of different booths and various things. The swag was a bit average, but while it's actually playing through, there is some swag that I do want to offer up to people at the end. I managed to get the Hit Refresh book. If anyone's keen on reading that, there's this I Am Root t-shirt from Science Logic, and a group that I actually helped put together as well, which was Guardian 365. We kind of covered the as a referral kind of group trying to cover the event and do live streamings and talk to people. So yeah, that was fun. What else have we got? Trying to keep this moving because we don't want to make this into Daryl's family show with slides. Click, and here we have. Yeah, I was there. That's right. So one of the things that I was involved in was some of the reporting. So in day one we were part of a group that were involved in this get-up. So they did a live show where basically there were like 3-minute segments and we had to be at a certain place at a certain time, talk to someone, and then cutting over to this person. And so that's something that was set up there. It was quite exciting to be part of. And I was telling people a little earlier, because of my involvement with that, I only attended 1.5 sessions. One of them was the keynote. The second session was half of the Azure Techno, because I had to talk to an Azure analyst in part of the live show, and that's not my strength. Daniel would probably have helped me out there, but I had to talk and ask some intelligible questions, so I thought I'd better attend some content. What else we got? Microsoft Sign, cool. Community Central was an important place. So if you're part of the tech community, techcommunity.microsoft.com, they had this set up here, and every day they had a theme for, like the first day was the data takeover, and that was also announcing the SQL 2018? Yeah. There was the Windows Day, the Azure Day, but the cool thing was that just across the way was Microsoft Mechanics and their live shows that they record. And they had executives that would come in and be part of those shows, and then on the takeover days they'd come over and they'd mingle and talk, and you could have a bit of a questions and answer kind of session. So we got to talk to like Jeremy Chapman from Microsoft Mechanics. There was a live stream I did with Julia White, Jeff Teeper from SharePoint as well. So lots of fun. The other great initiative too is this thing called a community theatre. So it's not just about breakout sessions, but they had these theatres dotted around the whole expo hall, and these were like 20-minute TED Talks. They were really punchy. There was only enough time to sort of deliver 1 or 2 major points and maybe a demo, but because of that, you had crowds like this that would just, people who would subscribe and say, yeah, I want to go to that, and then others that just wander along and go, oh, that looks interesting. And you'd learn something just without necessarily planning it. And there was massive turnouts to those. They were interactive, they were quite engaging, and like I said, because they had to be condensed, it meant that the content had to be delivered quickly and there wasn't any waffle. So that was Daniel Glenn's one, and he actually ended up getting one of the largest turnouts, and then he had to do a repeat session that was recorded through the Microsoft Mechanics. And that was one of my sessions there with Lauren Strant. We were trying to talk about good etiquette with Office 365, because we all end up pissing people off with the way that we use technology sometimes, and not replying to meeting invites and chewing in our headset. So that was fun. We actually ended up having something of a fight while we were doing that. I don't know, there's a lot more I could show and say, but the other thing is being able to engage with some people from the product group. So here's some of the OneNote team. Everyone knows I love OneNote. And that's a box of cookies that their GM, or I forget what her acronym is, but she baked some cookies for me, so that was nice. Yeah, they even had like a little impression of a OneNote with purple sugar crystals all in there. I got in trouble on the way home with those. I mean, you think, border patrol or whatever, and you can't take food. That wasn't the problem. The problem was me walking down the aisle and wanting to share them with people. Because I was just trying to be neighbourly, and I got the air host guy, used to come to the back of the plane. Please tell me that you know each of these people that you're handing these cookies out to. No. Well, FCC blah blah laws state that allergies and pathogens and blah blah blah. Oh yeah, you're right. I could come off as a terrorist. Terrorist with cookies.
Give them more magic cookies.
Yeah, it depends which state you come from, eh? Yeah, whether it's legalised or not. But yeah, that's I've got plenty of other stories. I won't continue with that. I want to hand it over to some actual updates so you can learn some stuff. But one thing that you probably are already experiencing if you're trying to keep up with what has been announced and what has been talked about at Ignite is there's just so much. So one thing that I always try and impress upon the community, the user groups, is that we've got to keep ourselves up to date with each other's views and opinions and observations, because we no longer can be experts in everything. So this is why we depend on sessions like this to point us to go and see this, go and watch that. There's videos that are still coming out, so yeah, get stuck in. Anyway, we'll hand it over to Daniel and I'll do a little change as we get his computer online. Oh, actually, you go directly in, don't you? There's no adapter required. I'll pass through shortly. You could duplicate. And what size is the resolution there?
It's 1080, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Just try plugging it back in. Does it detect usually normally? It did last time, eh?
Yeah, it did last time.
Just go duplicate.
Let's try that again. Seems weird.
While we're figuring out some of this technical issues, I'll just reboot this thing. As a way of trying to keep up with videos, everything's been published to YouTube for MS Ignite. Videos are still coming out. One of the things that I thought with my cheap Scottish head on, trying to be a cheapo, was that there's a 3-month trial at the moment for YouTube Red, which allows you to download those videos and do them offline. So take advantage of that, if you will. I'm certainly doing that. If this is not going to work, this is definitely rebooted.
Yeah.
Is there another HDMI port or?
It's still
What about this one? I might just borrow that one there. That one's using the mini adapter. And we'll try that one. Sounds promising. You know what? We're not gonna keep the local audience waiting. Let's just do this. Bye bye now. Sorry, live stream. Bye bye for now. There we go.
Let's do it the video.
Hey?
Do the video.
Could do that. Yeah. Let's just flip
fancy.
that
Watch, I haven't got you 360.
Okay.
hit the refresh and whack it down.
Cool. Okay. Right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Daryl. Don't know if you could answer me. Is it worth the price of admission going all the way to Ignite? And
Well, it's the price of flights too for us.
yeah,
isn't it?
I know.
But I must say that even though I didn't attend a whole lot of sessions, networking and talking with people and hearing their stories and getting ideas about how to apply this content, getting opinions, that community feel is definitely worth it too. The swag was pretty cool. Being able to talk to people from the product groups and actually give you feedback in person, that's also fun too. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, my name's Dan. What I'm going to, as Daryl said, there's so much stuff comes out during Ignite, and it's kind of hard to keep up with all of it. So I've picked a few things that were that I thought were kind of cool. But you probably, if you've been looking at all the stuff that came out with Ignite, you probably got your own opinions about what was cool, what was useful, what was awesome. So I basically picked a whole lot of stuff, and I'm only going to probably get through a couple of them. So apologise if you think
hey, why didn't you talk about X? Because there's obviously, everyone's going to have their own opinion. So I'm going to talk about PowerShell with Azure Cloud Shell, because being a PowerShell guy, that was awesome. Especially because now I can have PowerShell on my Android, although anyone who knows the Android phone I have will know that my phone isn't powerful enough to run the Android apps, the Azure PowerShell. So I can just admire everyone else running it. And I saw there was a few IT pros, right? Anyone here IT pro? Yeah, there's a few, everyone's a little bit IT pro, right? So Project Honolulu, so anyone, if you come across that's pretty cool. It's got lots of shiny things. A little bit something for developers or for engineers, people who are worried about cybersecurity, is Azure Managed Service Identity, and then I'll talk about some of the virtual networking enhancements if I get to it. There was a whole lot of other stuff, but won't go to those unless I have to. So you would have, if you've been into Azure, you've probably seen that little PowerShell icon, or that little icon at the top, and you click it and takes you to Bash, and some of you might have even gone and clicked on that little box that says, hey, run that, log in and have a look at that Bash icon, this one here. Let's have a look and see if I can get that across onto the screen. So, oops, it's a bit further on. So you would have seen that little thing there. So basically, they finally enabled it so you can click on that and you can now change from Bash to PowerShell. Well, there we go. So
You have to click on it and then it will take it.
yeah, I was going to say, hang on, I was using this like an hour ago. So yeah, perhaps I went back in time. So now if you select PowerShell, you'll get a full PowerShell window. This is actually going to spin up a small container. When I first go into PowerShell, it's going to ask me where do I want to put this, where do I want to run my PowerShell container, and it gives me a bunch of data centers I can run it in. I think in my case I've just gone for East US. It'll also allow me to put a storage account in place. If we have a look, and that storage account is basically going to persist all the information that I might use. I might create a whole bunch of scripts for rebooting VMs or managing my Azure account or doing a whole lot of stuff. I could put that all in my storage account and have that persist. But one of the cool things with this is they allow you to, it's actually a storage account with a file share, so it's SMB file share. So I can go and map a drive to that, and I can then just use that as a normal storage. I can be on-prem, working away, copy all my scripts up, copy all my code up, copy a bunch of artifacts into my mapped drive, and they'll all appear up in my Cloud Shell eventually when it starts up. So if I go and have a look while that's starting up, I'll go and have a wee look at the storage account. So in my Cloud Shell, this was all created automatically for me when I first went into the Cloud Shell. If you've used the Bash one, you probably already have this because it actually shares a lot of the stuff. But if I click on the storage account that was created, you'll see there's a file share. Let's continue on. So you'll see there's a file share over here. That file share is what I can use to map a drive. So if I go and grab that, I can use this little this connect button, and it'll give me the command to map that drive locally. Now, just one thing I found: if you copy this and then you go, say, you try and say chuck that in PowerShell, this will not work.
Can't you use that as a reference?
You can. Now the reason why it won't work is actually, it's handy of me to do that, it actually adds some slashes in there that if you copy and paste, actually in this case, this particular key is okay, but it often puts a slash in there that causes the mapping not to work, so you've got to go and remove the slashes. I usually just go and, that's the extra storage key, that's the primary storage key for the account. So if I go and,
so if you see a slash, you can...
It actually puts a double slash like two different directions, but in this case we're lucky it didn't actually do it. So, well, they fixed it. So if I copy that, paste this. That's not. There we go. I've just pasted a whole bunch of them. So now that will map that drive for me.
Yeah, the double slashes there.
Ah, that's the double slash I was talking about. So what you've got to do is you've got to remove the correct slash. I've actually got this.
So as long as you remove that, it's okay?
Yeah, I've got one that I prepared earlier. That has the slashes removed. What you would typically do is go and grab that didn't copy that. Technical failure. Only copying the half a string, so.
That's the reason why we still need Notepad in the year 2000.
Yeah, Notepad never goes wrong, right?
It's still using it now.
It's not copying, so I'll just delete that slash man. I think it's that one there. Ah.
Give the space.
What I do is I'll go and get the storage. If I go and get the storage key. Don't record this because of course you'll get access to my. You didn't see that? Yeah, this is not live streaming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like 254 characters.
Didn't we have that problem last time?
Yeah, we did,
Change
and
your key.
I changed all my keys afterwards. Things I do for you guys. I know. Hey, look, one thing. You only get 6 gigs of storage, so if you want to go use my 6 gigs of storage, that's fine. So now I've got Z drive mapped, and I can now go and have a look what's in there. There's my PS Cloud Shell, so I could go and copy a bunch of scripts up there, manage that, use it as a bit of a sort of a mini SkyDrive for my scripts. So it's pretty cool.
Cool.
You got access to things like Git, all the Azure PowerShell commandlets, and everything's. Didn't want to restart that.
See how it's called Cloud Shell, by the way?
Yep.
I'm a member of a Yammer study group for Azure, and even the actual instructor didn't know that it was called Cloud Shell.
Oh. And it's the container, the actual container that runs this is actually available on GitHub, so you can actually run your own version of this container on your machine if you wanted to run your personal Cloud Shell. You're not going to. What's the point? You know, you could run PowerShell on your machine if you want. So you can do anything you could normally do. You can run tests up there. You can go and clone modules from PowerShell Gallery. You can just go and get all your Azure. So I can go and restart all of my. Every web app I've got. I wouldn't recommend you do this to production.
Do you still need to add RM to the command?
I didn't record it. So do you have, no, for PowerShell, no. Well, you're going to have to, do you add the account? No, you don't, because it's pre-authenticated for you. One of the first things that's said in green is it says it's authenticated. So if I get Azure RM resource, fail. Oh, I just want resource. You don't want me to tab through it all. There we go. So it's pre-authenticated. I don't need to log in. So you can see it just spun through all those resources. I don't know why this screen is all out of whack like that, but yeah. So it's showing me all the resources available in this particular subscription.
So Daniel, does it let you to log in with a different service as well?
No, You could, well, you theoretically could. So I could go and just use add Azure RM account, and it would change the account I'm logged in with, so I could impersonate someone else, should you wish to be either malicious or run automation, impersonate automation. So it's great stuff. I mean, you can do anything. As I said, you can anything you want. So you don't need to take your machine around. You can use your mobile phone. You know, you need to restart all your web apps all in one go. You could have a little script in your cloud shell, run that. Everything starts back up, and you're good to go. And you're going back to partying like Nick was the other night. So yeah, so I won't linger on that. It's pretty cool. That was a big one for me because I've always wanted to. I've been waiting for that for a long time. So going back, yeah, you can mount that as Y-Drive or mount that as whatever. You get access to a whole bunch of apps in there. There's a whole lot of build tools installed. There's heaps of stuff, and you can install your own modules, and they'll stay there. So if you install, your favorite little module for connecting to Visual Studio Team services, or your MS Office, you got the Microsoft Office module available. You could have that stored there. So, and it will stay there for you. Right, so Project Honolulu. Now this is the shiny tool. Basically, anyone who's managed a Windows server, you will be familiar with the MSC set of GUI tools. You're always logging in. You're gonna run those tools on that machine, and they use heaps of different ports. So if you want to remote manage a machine and get all the event logs, you're running through all these ports. You've got all this complex GUI. It's a real nightmare. Anyone who's sort of administers a lot of machines in a big IT pro environment knows the headache of trying to set up all your remote tools and be able to remote manage heaps of servers. You might use System Center or something like that, but Project Honolulu came along, the Microsoft team came along and said, look, let's sort of do away with all this. Let's create this thing called, I think it was called Azure Server Tools. And it existed for about 6 months. Does anyone know how long it existed for? Does anyone even remember that this existed? Yep, one person, cool. So there was this, basically they had this idea that let's put all the management tools for Windows in the cloud, and all your on-prem servers will connect to it, and you'll just remote into this Azure interface, and you'll manage all your on-prem servers through Azure. Needless to say, that didn't go down so well, and it sort of dropped off the map pretty quick. But I think what they've basically done is they've taken that whole concept and said, it was still a good idea, but let's give you the ability to run these tools on-prem, because we don't want people remoting into servers. We want to reduce the number of ports that are open, and we want a really nice, slick GUI interface, and we want it in the browser. So let's take all those things and allow you to run these yourself. So they came up with Project Honolulu. So this is basically a web server you run on your own virtual machine, and it acts as a gateway service to all the machines you want to manage. And they could be on-prem, and they can be in the cloud. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually show you through Honolulu and what it looks like. I'm going to run a virtual machine in the cloud, and I'm going to use it to manage another virtual machine. But typically you would manage a whole bunch of Windows Server 2016 or 2012 2 machines or 2012 machines. They could be all on-prem, they could be in the cloud, whatever, but it'll look like this. So basically you're going to have a Honolulu server sitting here in the middle. As a gateway server, you will have your clients connecting to it via HTTPS, and they'll authenticate to the server, and they'll then use that server to remote manage all these nodes. And as I said, these could be on-prem, but they could be in the cloud as well. And what it does is it uses PowerShell and WinRM to manage all these servers. So it does away with this need to have all of these ports opened. So you just have one port, 5986. And everything's managed over that. And because it's managing everything with PowerShell, what it enables you to do is do things like log all of the activities that are done. And you can also apply things like GIA, which if you're not familiar is just enough administration. So you can say, this dude over here, he can just view the event log, and he can start services, but he can't stop them, because you can control what PowerShell commandlets they have access to. So you can do a whole lot of really cool stuff which you can't do with the old MSC deployment management tools. So anyway, I'll just go in and load up a Honolulu server. I'll actually install one first, one just to show you how easy it is. It's really, really trivial. I've lost my mouse. There's that one. There we go. So I've got a server here. Get rid of that. Got a VM running in here, and it's called Honolulu. This is the one I've already pre-installed with it, but I'm going to install it on this for you. Just show you, it really is really, really simple. It does need a certificate because it's going to run over SSL, which is a good thing, right? So if you've, you can either use a self-signed, but it can be a bit of a pain. So if you've got your own CA, you can issue one from that, or you can go, if you're going to publicly expose this, you'll want a public certificate, publicly issued certificate. So I've got 3 screens going on. It's well confusing. So you can't see I'm actually logging in at the moment. The reason why I really like this from a IT or DevOps perspective is that in theory we can now enables us to start doing things like headless servers. And the more we can do headless servers, the less people are encouraged to log into machines. And in my opinion, if we can get away from logging into machines, A, we get to reduce the footprint of the machine. B, we patch less because you don't need this big GUI you've got to patch. And C, you get a more known and trusted environment because people haven't logged in and they've RDP'd in and they've copied some files around and they've stopped some services because you get this level of control over it. So I'm just gonna I've logged in now. Oh, here we go. So literally you download the installer and you run it. It's kind of pretty obvious, right? It's going to ask you which port to run on and which certificate to use, and that's it. It's going to ask me if I can it can modify the trusted hosts, which is fine. Ask me I think it's 6515 it recommends you put on. It doesn't default, but I'll just use a self-signed one and install. And within it takes about 10-15 seconds to install. This is an A1 machine, so it's going to take a little longer than a normal machine. So what I'll do while that installs, I actually go to a one that I've prepared earlier, and here's what the Honolulu interface looks like. When you actually first go there, you notice it's got a certificate error because I used a self-signed cert. You probably want to use a public one, a proper issued one. It's running on 6515 and it is HTTPS, obviously. What it will do is it first says, right, here's all the servers that I've detected, and it's only going to detect one, and that's itself. But when you log in, so I log in as me, I can then add all the servers I want to manage into that. And if William here, he logs in, or if Daryl logs in, he gets to choose which servers he wants to manage. And he can bring these in by just going, I'm going to add some servers. Left click, not right click. And he can go in and say, this always takes a few seconds for some reason. He will be able to either add the server by name or a list. You can grab a text file and just say, here's all my servers I've exported out of AD or out of, even out of Azure. I could do a PowerShell Azure command to get all my VM names and put them into a text file and then import them in. And this will go and add them. But for some reason, this always takes at least a few seconds to come up. But anyway, we don't need to wait for that. You can take my word for that. So here's the 2 servers I've got to manage. I'm going to manage the faster one, which is this itself. This is the other server that I've just been installing. I don't actually need Honolulu on all the servers to manage them. I only need it on the gateway. So I just was installing that to show you, but I'm going to go and manage this one. So notice it says credentials needed. I can't, just because I get access to Honolulu, doesn't give me access to everything else in the world. Everything else, I still got to go and log in. So I'm going to log in, and this is not a domain joined machine. So I can manage domain joined and non-domain joined machines. And I can say I want to use all the, let's see if that's going to work. I can use all that credential for everything, or I can just specify them on demand. and I can manage them as, obviously I can impersonate as well. So I could say, you know, if you're going to do something like admin separation where your admins don't. So that's now made me online, so I can now click in. I only need to make myself online once per session. Once I close my browser, it'll go offline again. Not the server, just my connection to it. So now I can go in and manage. So it gives me all this thing. Now, this is a plugin model. So Microsoft have already released these extensions, so you know, certificates overview, devices, etc. They're going to release more, and third parties are going to release more. So you're going to get things like SQL Server is going to pop up there, Exchange. You'll get other management tools, extensions, as the teams release them. So you'll find a whole lot of stuff extending, and also third parties. So you know, if you're for some reason, you know, if you're running ESXi hosts or something, you might have an ESXi extension to manage the agents on that. I don't know, you've got a whole lot of stuff should be coming. So basically, this always takes a little while the first
Could
time.
you scroll down to see the others?
Yeah. So yeah, similarly, we've got certificates. I'll go through a couple of them. We've got certificates, devices, events, files, which is awesome because you can move files around around the system. You can upload files, download them. You know, I think there's even an unzip function, so you can do a whole lot of really cool stuff in there. My favorite is actually certificates because it's got this really cool feature that shows you what's about to expire. So you can sort of go, oh man, I better go fix that certificate up. So it gives you this nice live, I don't know where the scroll bar is, but it actually gives you pretty much an overview of the machine. And there's actually a bunch of graphs down here, which are all live, and they show things like the machine, you know, how the machine's behaving. This is that spike is me actually starting up. These are all loaded on demand. So I can go over here to certificates. Each of these tabs, the first time you load them on a machine, after reboot, it does take a wee while because it loads all the stuff. And I think this is an A2 machine, so it's not exactly high spec. So if you're going to do this, you'd want to make sure your gateway is a little bit more, you know, a little bit higher spec than mine. Now, so while that's doing that, I love Windows Update. Of course, most people are going to run WSUS or something, but in fact, you can do it. It also has, notice there's the server manager, but you can also manage failover clusters. You can also manage Hyper-V, converged systems in there. You've got a whole lot of stuff, and as I said, more and more extensions will be loaded for this, and this does seem like the way to go for management. You know, it's a lot. It's pretty slick once this takes. And while that is going as well, you can actually, over here is where you'd manage the extensions, and there's actually an extension sort of library where you can choose additional extensions. There's nothing there yet, but I imagine that's where you'll later on you'll go and get those.
So is this more about the performance of the gateway rather than the machines that you're connecting to?
In my case, yes, because it's actually connecting to itself. Well, in my case, it's connecting to itself, so it's going to be double whammy.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I was being a cheapo and spinning up really crappy machines, clearly. So yeah, you get the idea. So that's my favourite one, the expired thing there.
Well, nearly expired.
Nearly expired. Sorry, nearly expired is the one I really I don't know what the threshold is, so. So yeah, there we go. Our nearly expired 5. I only just deployed this like yesterday, so I don't know why we've got 5. So yeah, you can actually in there you can import new certificates. You can export them. You can't request new ones from in there, but I do love the fact that the files one there. That's that's really awesome. And the Windows Update. Anyway, so you get the gist. So it's pretty cool.
What's virtual machine? Is that to manage Hyper-V?
It is. It manages. So it will. If I had Hyper-V on here, it would allow me to manage virtual machines. I could stop them, start them. I think you can even create them. Of course, this is a virtual machine inside. I would have to deploy a 2016 virtual machine data set. You know, the one you can do nested virtualization. I didn't. B1 or an A2 or whatever it is not good enough for that. And that's the Hyper-V virtual switches as well, so you can manage both of those.
That's awesome.
So yeah, there's that. So what's the time like? As I said, I said to these guys, I'll 10 more minutes. Shall I get 10 more minutes? You good?
Yeah.
See how we go. Okay, so I'm going to shoot through these other ones pretty quick. Okay, so that's Honolulu. Go take it for a spin. As one of our teams has already spun it up, and they're having a look at it to manage servers already. They sent me a screenshot of a screen load of servers. That was Eric. That they're trying out. So next one, this is managed service identity. So this one is a little bit hard to explain, but imagine one of the big problems is say you have a system you want to move to the cloud, and it handles credit card transactions. And you've got this virtual machine, it's this app, and it goes and connects up to your bank system, and it handles credit card transactions, but it has a username and password that it needs to authenticate to that bank. Now, what are you going to do? Normally, you're going to go, okay, let's stick that, we'll install our app on that VM, and then we'll stick that username and password in a text file, and then the app will read that. And that's just, cybersecurity goes there's weird colours. They break. So then they go, okay, well, put it in a key vault. Cool. Stuck in an Azure key vault, chuck that up there, and let's put the username and password to the key vault in the text file instead. So we've kind of shifted the problem. We haven't done anything about it, and that's the problem of bootstrapping credentials. So MSI sort of handles that problem. What it does is it's kind of like a managed service, security account, service account, managed service account for Windows, except in the cloud. But in the cloud, you don't have AD. You don't have machines joined to AD, right? You might have Linux machines, or you might have web apps. So managed service identity is like the next version of that. It allows the machine or the web app to go and request a token from itself to gain access to another service in Azure. So what it will do is it goes, oh, here's my virtual machine, here's my app's running on here, and it needs this username and password. It doesn't want to store it in text, so what it does is it asks this MSI VM extension, which is installed really easy, just one click, it installs in there, and the VM extension goes off to Azure AD and gets a token, and it uses this in Azure AD. There's an account, a service principal with the same name as this virtual machine, and it uses that account and says, right, okay, here's a token that'll allow you to go to Key Vault. And of course, you've got to still grant Key Vault access by the VM, so you've got to say to the VM, hey, this service principal's got access to the Key Vault. But it makes it
like having single sign-on for VMs.
Yeah, in a way, it is, it's really, really simple. I'm not actually going to demo it too hard out because
You just explained it.
Yeah, I've explained it, and I'll just show you how easy it actually is to do. So one of my Honolulu servers, and let's go to this one. I think I might have.
Does that mean if somebody stands up a VM with the same name, they've got your credentials?
No, it doesn't actually. What happens? There's got some more different. It actually gives when it puts in the extension. It puts a secret into the extension as well. So it gives two things. It gives the local endpoint of the MSI. This MSI extension going back here, this thing here, this localhost token thing. That's actually running on a port. It gives you the URL of that, and it gives you a secret that your application can use to say to this VM, this extension, hey, I'm me, you can trust me. That service principal can only ever be used by this thing here. But you could, I mean, if you wanted to go and say, I'm going to grant myself a key for that service principal and use it for something else, that's up to you. It's your Azure account, it's your Azure service principal. But nothing else will use it unless you tell it to use it. So you kind of don't have to worry about it because it rolls the key for the service principal automatically for you. You don't have to keep an eye on, that server, that password's short, it's been compromised. It'll keep rolling it, it'll keep managing it for you. All you really do is you go over here to do configuration on this virtual machine, and oops, it's already done it. So you click yes, I'll go to another machine. And this works with virtual machines, Azure App Service, and functions. So if you've got an app, API, a function, or app, or whatever, you can do the same thing, and that endpoint is exposed inside your function. So you can now use that. Let's see if it's this one here. So it's pretty. It definitely makes cyber security. Oh, I've done it on that one as well. It makes cybersecurity really happy. I won't do a demo of it simply because it will take a little bit too much time and I don't want to. So here's an app service plan. I've got the same thing, app service plan. I can. Actually, it's not in the app service plan, it's in the web app itself. So that little thing, you just say, and when I click that on, what it goes and does, it creates that service principal in Active Directory for me and tells my app, hey, I've got a service, you can now gain access to the service principal, and I've got to then make my app use that service principal, but it's like 3 lines of code, it's really easy. And then my app can then go to the key vault, grant, it can do anything that I grant that service principal access to do. So it could go and actually, if I grant my service principal to use Azure Resource Manager, I could have one VM stand up another VM on my behalf, but I don't have to give it a username and password because it's all handled by the MSI. So that's another pretty cool thing. It was sort of slipped under the radar a little bit, but for security, it's pretty awesome. What do you got? 3 more minutes. So yeah, and it can do Linux. So it's like MSA for Linux and Windows and functions and apps. So it's, and at the moment it allows you to use 3 different resources. So Resource Manager, that's Azure itself, Key Vault and Data Lake. And they'll be adding a whole lot more. So yeah, as I said, the real benefit is it just makes configuration so much simpler and increased security is the big one. Azure Virtual Network Service Endpoints, another one that makes security really happy. If you've got a storage account, if you create a storage account, that's public, always. It's not a public IP address. Anyone could actually hit that endpoint. And sometimes that doesn't make security happy. And the same with SQL Server. If you've got a SQL Server, it's on a public endpoint, it's on a public address. Sometimes, I know, and it's secure as, but sometimes security go, we just don't like that. Whole idea is bad. So what's virtual network service endpoints do is allows you to actually put that SQL Server or that storage account inside a virtual network that's only accessible inside that virtual network. And then you could pair it with another virtual network, or you could connect it up to your on-prem using a VPN or one of the other methods. So it's really good for keeping cybersecurity happy. But to be honest, we've all been using public storage accounts for a long time, and it's a big deal. So yeah, it kind of works like this. So you've got your virtual network that you want to, with a virtual machine, you want to have some private storage. You create a VNet, you put your storage account in there, you enable a service endpoint, and you connect those 2 things together, and then you can no longer get to it from the internet, but you can get to it from on-prem or your virtual network. So that's pretty cool. DNS private zones. This one here is probably not, it's not something, you can now create private zones inside your own Azure VNets. So you could, create your own dan.local private DNS zone inside my VNet and put all my machines on that and tell them to register and look each other up. And I think it's almost costs pretty much nothing. It's almost, I think it's almost free. So, and the other one, final one that I will end on is DDoS protection for Azure Virtual Networks. So this one's another awesome one. You literally, all you have to do is once you've got yourself on the private preview, you can click on any virtual network. Let's click on a virtual network. I've got one here, one I prepared earlier. And you get this little DDoS protection. And what I love about this, you just enable it, right? And what it's going to do is it's going to use machine learning and a whole lot of other fancy things, and it will check all traffic going into your VNet that it is, doesn't look like an attack. It looks safe. But it not only does that, it'll also it adds you a new setting in log analytics. It adds you some new stuff in log analytics and monitoring, where you can actually say, if I'm being DDoSed, raise an alert and send message to an SMS to my cybersecurity team, and call their neighbour and tell them to wake them up. You can do a whole lot of stuff. It's really, really cool. You just configure it like any other metric.
Would that be because the signals coming in are consistent, looking like a denial of service?
Yeah. So I think there's a whole lot of good articles on exactly how it works, and it's way above my pay grade. It does a whole bunch of fancy things like machine learning on the patterns that you typically see coming into that network.
Sometimes it could be every minute, every 2 seconds, whatever.
Yeah, country based.
Somebody trying to ping me.
Yeah, and it's really cool. So I can't remember. Anyway, it's in there. I think I actually just took a screenshot. I was lazy maybe. Yeah, there we go. No, I didn't take a screenshot. So yeah, that's pretty much me. I could keep on going on about all the other little bits, but I'm gonna let you go and talk to Alan. Well, Alan, talk to you. He's gonna talk to you, right?
Everyone can talk to me and just
Right. So yeah, heaps of stuff. I don't know if I've covered anything that anyone else found interesting, but it was stuff that I found interesting. I definitely recommend just trying to keep ahead of all the stuff.
One last question, that private one that you mentioned?
You mean private DNS zones?
Yeah.
So
is that mainly useful?
Well, if you say have a heap of VNet, a heap of machines inside a VNet, or you just have one machine inside a VNet, and you want to give it an alias, or you want to put another type of DNS record for that, you might want to put a mail server record on it in there or something. You can do that, and it will do split, split zone addressing. So if you look that up internally, it'll give you one address. If you look it up externally, it'll do another address. It's really cool. And it just the only way you can manage it at the moment is via PowerShell. So if you're wanting to give it a go, you've got to use PowerShell to create those private zones. That's pretty easy. It's just create a zone.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
me.
Let's just do this again.
Oh, live streaming failure this time.
Wow. We had a good run. I think we've had about 5 user group sessions where it's actually
Worked.
been flawless.
Right, so I'm going to cover the Office 365 stuff. It's coming to a tenant near you, maybe soon. So there were some announcements which are literally going to be there next month, and there were some that are probably going to be Q1 or Q2, right? I'll try and point out ones that might be a bit later. So these are, there's a ton of these, so I'm just going to try and run through as much as possible. There was just a huge amount of announcements. Fortunately, actually, Microsoft, before they actually announced them at Ignite, actually took all the MVPs through kind of on sessions the week before, so we could ask them a whole bunch of questions about what it was they were presenting and how exactly it worked, so we could get kind of some of the background, which was really good. So let's start with files on OneDrive, but everyone's probably played around with OneDrive before. I actually have this running on my machine because I've got some Windows 10 latest preview updatey thing. But basically what it means is now you can synchronize files from either a OneDrive or SharePoint site. But you can say just kind of add the stubs to my file system. So if you actually go in and look at your OneDrive, it looks like all the files are there. Whereas before it only showed like the ones that you were syncing. And now it shows all the folders. And it will tell you whether it's actually synced or not. So some will have like a tick, and then others have a little cloud to show they're on the cloud. And then as soon as you open it, it actually downloads the file as you actually open it. So you don't need to right click and go make this available offline, and then it does it sort of as a seamless experience, which is really nice. But it is a Windows Creators Update piece, right? So if you've not got Windows 10, then this isn't going to be just an install of OneDrive.
We're what, 2 or 3 weeks away from having that? So it's
Yeah, or just go latest preview on your machine if you like. And this works nice. Like I've been running this for a while now.
Isn't that what they had on OneDrive before, and they
Yes. Yeah. So we've gone back to what we had before.
Because
Yeah,
it
which
was
is
the
quite
biggest
nice.
feature. Everybody complained when it took it away. Like, I've got to
Yeah.
download the whole of OneDrive just to get all my files.
But it's great now because I can synchronize like project files out of groups, and then I don't have to worry about it filling up my hard disk, but I can still access the files. The other thing is the sharing bit. So they changed the whole sharing box in SharePoint Online. So if you go now to like, share the file, you get this nice little new interface. Do you want to share with people in the organization or anyone? And that was different. If you went to your local OneDrive and you right-clicked and said, I want to share, it then opened a web browser and then opened the file on the web browser and then said, now you need to share. So now actually, and I've got this running as well. So you just go share and it brings up exactly the same box. And later on, actually, in Office as well, they've done the same thing because they used to have a different type of share option inside of Microsoft Office, and now actually it comes up with this dialogue instead of the one that comes up in Office, which was like a little kind of search for somebody. So now you get exactly the same experience across the whole board.
Even on Mac.
Oh yes, any Mac users? No. Oh, there you go. You'll enjoy the experience. Did anyone know you couldn't actually synchronize rights managed protected files? So if you applied rights management to either the file because you were using Azure Information Protection, or you actually rights managed the document library, then it wouldn't synchronize the file. And that was because something to do with unencrypting it to be able to copy it down and some other bits and pieces. But that's all solved now, so you'll actually be able to encrypt your files as much as you like and protect them, and you'll still be able to synchronize them, which is nice. Short URLs. We got from this massive long one down to this really short one. I was watching this session. It was like, oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Wow.
And it's the last, yes. It's great, but yeah.
10 years too late.
Yes, yeah. But it still has to be rather long because you imagine it's got to reference, your specific file in your library and your site.
How do you access that feature?
Oh, it'll just be when you copy the link to the file.
Right, is it default short?
It'll be the default. Will be the short URL.
And what's a short URL? Is it like a MS or?
No, it's this. So you just get
Your
you're still going to get your tenant name. Then it has this kind of colon W:/S / whatever the kind of sub-site thing is or library, and then there's this kind of unique reference to the file. Rather than all this other gump about where it's stored and everything else, and the UID and a whole bunch of other
It's a
things.
semi-short one.
Yeah. No worries to mention that share function is exactly the same. You'll actually be able to share now files that are actually encrypted with external parties without them needing to actually register a Windows account. Microsoft account. Sorry. So when I said it's sort of handy for things like banks, insurance companies, things like that want to send out encrypted documents that
Is that about
policies.
now, or is it coming? Is that feature now?
I think that's almost now. Yeah.
I actually shared
This is
some
one of the
files
ones-
yesterday and it was fun.
Yeah.
It's been a recent change.
So how do
Yeah,
I
and then
authenticate with
so
that?
the only thing is the concept where there used to be a checkbox to say when I share this, make sure that the recipient is the person that receives the email.
Yeah.
So that kind of is a bit redundant because this actually the way this works is that it sends a code to the same email address, so you can only actually open the file if you're using the same email account that received the original file in the first place.
Cleaner.
But you can still go and sign in with another account if you want, but you might as well use the one-time passcode. Just see most people using. Nice. You'll be able to view file analytics, but I didn't see any screenshots or anything on this. It's kind of mentioned there'll be file analytics. So this one's one to watch and see what actually happens in this space. File previews. So at the moment you can embed on a page mostly Microsoft Office files, PDF files, put a little PowerPoint slide in a web page. You'll now be able to embed actually some 270 plus other types of files into a web page, right? And you'll be able to preview those. So all the thumbnails that you see in your OneDrive will show all these other types of files.
How about Office files?
Well, Well, that was a work.
Because like if you're looking within Excel, you can't preview an Excel file, for example.
Should be able to.
In a Explorer you can, but if you're looking within Excel, has anybody opened up Excel or Word document and then look at the preview to see what's inside it, and you can't?
Nope. You have to show us next time.
Okay.
So even including like 3D models actually work. We use a lot of Illustrator files. So that's quite
Medical
cool.
files as well.
Medical
X-rays.
files,
Yeah.
X-rays, and things. Yeah,
That's good.
CAD files, all sorts.
3D CAD.
And that's using a file extension thing as well that they've been building up so people can actually then create their own as well and extend it. Right, new web parts. Tons of new web parts. But the new web parts are in the new modern sites. So I don't think if you're using one of their old type sites, you're going to be able to access all these great new web parts. You're going to start moving over to modern sites and communication sites, and you'll be able to start using these. The one I actually quite like is this little connector web part. So you used to be able to like add RSS feeds to pull in data from external sources. Otherwise, you kind of then down a custom route to pull in something. So you can now actually use a connector web part, which uses the same connectors as Flow and Power Apps, or subset thereof, and then be able to add a connector web part and say connect to Twitter, connect to Facebook, connect to Trello, or anything else you want to, and then kind of put in like a listing.
Are they the connectors from the Office 365 groups? The one Outlook and Teams? And
Yeah, they're in the same ones that work in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they've just made a web part that can connect to data. Yeah, which is quite nice. And there's an improved YAML web part. Which is not like the old one. It's like a
And look,
card
I'm a
thing.
Yammer supporter. I'll do a session on it. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
tell you why that's a good thing.
The other one I like, you can embed Microsoft Forms. So Microsoft Forms was a part of the education service originally, is now in like the business business side.
Awesome.
So nice little tool for gathering quick information, registrations, quizzes, that sort of thing. But you can now embed that on the page.
Awesome.
And so because they've got so many web parts, I've had to create a new little interface to pick web parts and categorize them, and this kind of pops out as a picker. They're going to improve the Teams integration, because a lot of people found when they're in a SharePoint site, there's no way to get back to the rest of the content, like Planner and stuff. So if you're in the mail interface, you can get to Planner. And if you're in Teams, you can kind of add tabs. But if you're in the SharePoint site, you're kind of like isolated. So they're adding in the ability in the quick launch, you can just go add the connection to the Teams space or the groups page or the Planner, and then just really quickly for users to add those links. Or you can use this really, in an old SharePoint site, if you've got a classic SharePoint site that wasn't part of a group, you can use this really long named thing called Connect to New Office 365 group, and it'll actually spin up a 365 group in the background and connect your SharePoint site into it as if it was created as part of the 365 group. Or you can just hash groupify it, which Jeff Deeper mentioned at some point and now hates it because everyone's using it as a
Groupify
tag.
and Hubify.
Hubify it,
You'll be
groupify
doing
it.
Hubify soon.
I'll do Hubify soon, yeah. So the quick launch, sorry, is a bit blurry. But yeah, you can basically go add these sort of common links to group stuff. You'll be able to customize a page with a header and a footer. So some styling perspective and maybe global navigation across all your sites. You can get back to that again, which we kind of lost with the modern sites. So you get this top bar across here. You can kind of put whatever you like in. I saw somebody the other day actually added in a notification that this site has external users as part of the site. So kind of a warning to the users that other people externally might be able to see the content. So kind of watch what you put in here. Maybe the classification of the site, a whole bunch of other things you could add. And there's also a footer as well. And you'll be able to customize the fields. So you can create customized field controls and say, show this as a little mini map, as well as now adding something in this bar again. So we had the toolbar, and you could go write JavaScript and add things in the toolbar, and people would add all these customizations in. And then they created these modern document libraries, and then people couldn't move to them because you couldn't customize the toolbar. But now you'll be able to add your own links and things into the toolbar. If you're using Teams, you'll be able to start embedding individual pages from SharePoint sites into Teams. so people don't have to necessarily move out of the Teams site, the Teams app, to actually see and consume some of the content out of a SharePoint site. And there's a whole bunch of other links that are adding in tabs and things into Teams. We're going to need Teams stuff to Daryl, I think.
I might do another session.
We'll do another session on Teams because there's a bunch of updates to the desktop app. The mobile apps are getting lots of updates, but not if you have a Windows phone like me. So I'm just going to ignore this because this doesn't apply. But yeah, if you're using the mobile experience, there's a bunch of stuff in Teams, so you can then go view more of the content that's related to Teams, as well as the experience of being able to go in and you can actually get like a news feed and then add yourself like a read later kind of thing that you do with like other common newsfeed apps and bookmark stuff to come back to. Right, from an intranet perspective, then they talked a lot about using communication sites as the way forwards. Yes, maybe next year about June, I say probably, because there's a few things that are still missing. And a lot of usage that I see for communication sites at the moment are probably more sort of small hubs. So I see organizations, rather than building a new section of their intranet, they create a communication site as kind of like a little mini hub site, virtual site of some sort, focused on maybe one topic or one subject to reorganize some of the content. Once they've done a few of the updates, and I'll talk about things like hub sites and stuff in a minute, then it becomes more viable to be a full-blown intranet. And then they're doing a whole bunch of stuff around news pages, so you can easily promote news pages. You can promote a news page, send it via email, put it in navigation. They're doing stuff so you can add it to Teams. So just being able to do more than it's just a listing on the page. And there's also another section where you can actually go list all the news and actually create a little email out of that has all the little snippets, so you can then do your normal digest email that everyone loves. Everyone asks me every time, create this digest email to send around. I go, well, why don't you just go to the news page? But anyway, they've created it.
Is this going to be a different template to the communication sites, do you think? Or is this just a different...
Oh, well, it'll work wherever you publish a news page.
So it's
Yeah,
a different entity than a com site, though, is it?
Yeah. No, then they're both exactly the same template underneath.
Right.
So in a modern site, you can go create news item,
Right.
and it's exactly the same template as in a communication site, and create a news page. Yeah. There's actually only one field that actually says it's news, which is one that says promote to home or something like that.
All right. Okay.
And it's just a field with a tag in it.
Same thing then.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's the same as any other page. They're extending it. We talked about LinkedIn earlier, so they're doing more integration into people cards. So if you're anywhere where you see a person turn up and you click on their details, they're going to link it into LinkedIn. So you don't just get the content that's inside of SharePoint and profiles. You'll actually get data coming in from LinkedIn as well.
It's going to be limited to employment history and one other thing as well. I mean, if you can imagine, workplaces being able to access your LinkedIn profile and seeing, oh, that person's now looking for a new job. That would be interesting.
I think it's at the moment it's per user option as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you've got to opt in as a user. You can't just drag in that data. Exactly.
Right, look and feel improvements. So they've always had themes. This is not too different from a theme, really, in the background, except just the way it's defined is now in JSON. But they're giving us a little theme generator. So you can go to a website, say your color scheme, and then it gives you the JSON block, and then you can a little bit of PowerShell, and you can upload your own. But you'll actually be able to remove the horrible ones that Microsoft supply. So you can take those out, and you can put your company ones in, and maybe create 2 or 3 different variations on your company one, and then users can choose from those. But far simpler than the user having to go to site settings, find where the look and feel box is, and there's this like interface that goes, well, do you want to try this out? And then it sort of replies the look, and then it's like, so much. And as you keep clicking the boxes, it actually changes the color on the screen straight away. So you can see the impact of that change without trying it out, which is quite nice. There's going to be a streamlined provisioning process. So this puts me out of a job, or some of our devs, because we've been building provisioning processes for like the last 3 or 4 years. But basically what they're doing is And they've added this themselves because they created a communication site. And when you go and create a new site, it says, what type of communication site would you like? So they actually built a provisioning engine to do that. And then went, oh, why don't we just let everyone else use this as well? Just kind of handy. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to say different types of sort of site designs, like the communication sites have different designs, and then be able to say different people in the organization can use different types of site designs. So depending on who you logged in as, you might see a different selection of different types of site layouts. It still creates an Office 365 group, but the SharePoint site is configured how you want it. And then essentially it's just configured in JSON. So I don't need any devs to write any code for me because I can write this quite easily. And it actually says all of the lists and libraries to add and the columns and the look and feel to apply, the layouts of the pages, where to put web parts on the page, all that sort of stuff will be covered. Right. And at the end of it, one nice little thing is you can get it to trigger a flow. Right? So actually we can still use part of our provisioning process to do things that this doesn't yet do. So at the end of it, it'll configure the site, call a flow, the flow will write to a queue or something like that, and our provisioning process will just pick that up and do any other modifications to the site for the users that this site design process doesn't actually cover.
Somewhat unrelated, do you know if there's any plans to remove the 5,000 item limit for lists?
I'm getting to that. Wait, haven't got to that. You're spoiling it. That was a big announcement.
Yeah, that's way.
Anyway, from a user's perspective, this is kind of what they see. So it'll actually show that there might be some things still in progress because it's still, they get their site and then sort of asynchronously it's applying their site design. So it's adding the libraries and lists, and if it's called your flow, it will say, and there's some other provisioning stuff going on. So it doesn't stop them sort of starting to use the site before it's actually fully configured, which could mean it might sort of, depending on what you're doing with the site, that might be a bit odd. But we'll have to see how that works out.
So, can I just ask then, they took away the homepage, so this is bringing it back?
The homepage from what perspective? There was always a...
Public site.
No. This is still just a... this is a communication site, but it could just be a SharePoint site, modern site, but it's still an internal site. There's no plan to do any internet sites ever again. In fact, there's no updating to the publishing infrastructure, which is a good hint.
Yeah.
That there's no plan to do any internet sites ever again. Hub sites. So what you'll be able to do, now it doesn't matter whether you've got I think the intention is that the hub site is a communication site, but you can link in either another communication site or just a modern site, and in those sites you'll be able to say connect to this hub, and then what it does is in the hub site it'll actually include that other site in the navigation, and then if you go to the site you've included, you'll get a global navigation as well. And in fact the global navigation is managed metadata, which is great because that's exactly what I was going to do to solve this problem. So they basically just include it as a linked type of managed metadata.
Doesn't work with external users. That top there doesn't work with external users.
No, because it won't, the managed metadata thing. This is for internal people, I think. And I mean, hub sites are really to solve that, where you've got lots of small communication sites of different departments and teams, and you want to roll up into a global view of all departments' details or something like that.
What does it mean for subsites now? What does it mean for subsites now?
Just don't create them. Like, why would you need to create a subsite? I can't think of a reason for a subsite now.
Yeah.
So hub sites are available now though? Is feature available now?
No, hub site's going to be a long way away.
Is it not? Okay.
No, this is probably in the March, or they said like,
Okay. So it's
if you're lucky, it's coming. But if you're planning to do something now, kind of plan that this is probably going to happen.
Sites now, this will be a consolidation view at some point. Over time.
So you could kind of create them separate now, knowing that that's coming. Right, list improvements, list underscore improvements for some reason when I copied and pasted this into the you'll be able to embed power-ups straight into the interface. So you'll actually see when you edit an item, you can actually say, do I want to use the power-up that I've configured for this list? So that concept of where you had info path and you could upsize the form, Essentially, you go power up this list, create a nice little interface for the list, maybe look up some data from external systems and from Dynamics and whatever else you want. So you could even remove the concept of business connectivity services, because you could use Power Apps to connect to the external data rather than using the old BCS way of doing it. And because it works with document libraries as well, it means that you could either edit the document or edit the properties, and it will still be a Power App to edit those details. And then you could either set the default to be the SharePoint form or the Power App, or still use your info path form for about as long as it's going to last. They've added the Power App link into the menu. You'll also be able to embed Power Apps elsewhere as well. At the moment, you can't embed them like in a page. It means like you have to give the person a link. Be able to create a little Power App and embed it actually anywhere inside SharePoint. You can create conditional formatting. If anyone used to use SharePoint Designer to do conditional formatting, we've kind of got it back, except it's not like a end user interface, because someone's got to write you some little bit of JSON. But I can imagine for common things like issues lists and task lists and things like that, you'll find like people will publish little JSON snippets for you to go grab and just modify a few parameters and paste it in. And that just means you can like change fields around, change their colors, add little icons if it's above or below a value. Just make the list a bit more of a nicer experience for users, a bit more engaging and interactive. So these ones, depend on whether the user needs to deal with them, are sort of color-coded red and green. So the list becomes a place to go, rather than just it's sitting in the background and you're writing web parts over the top to make it look nice. You can embed Power BI and Bing Maps, and no more paging. It's very difficult, you can't take a screenshot of this. But essentially, what they've done is, because it's all front-end JavaScript driven now, the lists, as you scroll down the page, it just keeps making calls to the back end and getting more data. So you don't need to go to next page, because that's essentially doing exactly the same call. You just don't refresh the page, just keep going with your list.
Who does that?
And it will just keep going forever. Obviously, there's still the limit. I think it's 30 million items in the list or whatever it is. That still applies. But it's going to take you a while to scroll through 30 million items. It'll probably take you all morning. You might have been quicker to filter it. And this is where you need to consider that this works because of some of the work they're doing around actually working out what columns to index. So based on the usage of the list, they'll add index to columns for people to filter and be able to then sort those columns as you then sort of paging through them. But if you're gonna, it's not gonna work so well if you already have a list that's very big, right? So you might have to kind of re-engineer some existing big lists, create a new list and add some indexes and move the content across to the new list for this to really work. And if you're starting from scratch, plan the indexes before you put the content in. That's kind of like the rule here. They're going to add some of the out-of-the-box flows back in. So we used to be able to go to a SharePoint library and just go run an approval workflow, and it would just run the SharePoint Designer workflow. And that had been gone for a while. But now they're going to create some out-of-the-box ones, so a send for review. It actually sends for approval, but of course it's sent for a review. And in the background, it's a flow that actually just has an approval workflow in it. Right? So just really simple for users to do a quick action.
Can you customize them, or can you customize them because it's out of the box?
No, they're really just the out of the box ones. But then just create your own, like the concept. Even with the SharePoint Designer ones, you wouldn't really customize that one. You'd create another one. And it also adds a column, so it kind of tracks all the status and stuff, so you can actually see the updates of the approval rather than it just like being sended off to flow and forget. Right, search. Massive updates to search. In fact, it's a new search interface altogether. Right? And it will be built using the new front-end JavaScript thing and scrap the whole. No one actually mentioned what happens to display templates. So that is my next question on the next MVP call. Because we've created all these nice display templates to display all this content, like how does that work now? But they're gonna, they've basically recreated people cards, how they promote little items. They've even got like folder views, so this is actually saying here's all the content in a folder that matches what you've searched for, and then you can then say, oh, just show me, I want to narrow down my filter to just that folder, and then be able to then search within that.
So is this within modern pages now, is it?
Essentially, that is in the modern page. Yeah.
That's good.
Big change.
Yeah.
Like using Delve and
You'll notice some things are missing. Conversations, videos.
You know what the conversation is?
Yes.
Yammer!
Yammer.
Whee!
And in fact, while we're here, they're actually going to replace the Yammer search engine with the SharePoint search engine.
Well, everything's going to be unified on that same.
Yeah, so it'll be unified in here anyway. So the YAML search will actually become better because it's using the.
It'll actually search.
It'll actually search for stuff. So they complain like, I don't put it in a YAML because I never find it. Will go away. Hopefully. You can actually, they're personalizing the search, so don't turn off the graph. It's like, there's so much stuff that's connected to Delve and the graph. If you turn it off, then basically you might as well use something else.
Scroll? Scroll those 30 million items?
Yeah, scroll all the way through all the items because they're basically using Delve to drive all of the experiences and actually, personalize things and target things to users. So as soon as you click in any search box, right? You used to have to go to Delve to do one type of search, and you go to SharePoint and do a different type of search, and your OneDrive to do another one. Basically, it doesn't matter which tool you're in. If you click in the search box, you'll get roughly the same kind of experience, right? Which is a lot better.
Well, that means that if you're in Outlook, if you're in Yammer, if you're in any product, you'll do a search and it will come back with results across all those platforms.
Yeah. Right. And it'll actually look up, the things you've been using most recently, so it's files or it's sites and things like that, just by clicking in it. So you don't even have to search if you're just looking for things you've just been using.
Can the search be edited to the user of what they want to see?
That'll be back in here.
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
As you kind of did before, but slightly different.
Thank you.
You get the previews, the 270 plus different types of previews work in search as well. So whether it's X-rays and all sorts of other things. And believe it or not, you'll be able to search for images. Someone asked this on the tech community the other day. And it's surprising, you can't actually search for images in SharePoint. It actually returns the list items and gives you a link to the list item with a little thumbnail in it. And then you have to click on the image and the image again to actually get the original image. But no, it will search for images. And because they're adding some intelligence over the top of this, they're actually analyzing the image to work out what it might be. So at the moment it's kind of like receipts, it's an X-ray, that kind of thing, but it's basically backing into the cognitive services. So it'll be able to detect things in the image. It's an image of a person, it's somebody skiing, that sort of thing will start to...
Or even going into your receipt and saying, show me all the receipts from that particular restaurant.
Yeah,
like
so text
save countdown, those kind of resets. Is that possible? To search the terms in the image? Is that
so that'll be next. So it actually pull in the text out of images and making that sort of
Because OneNote does that now.
Yeah, so it's just to be using the OneNote
It
bit.
has done for a while.
Yeah, so gradually you see this kind of adding. At the moment it's very basic because there's only because they're trying to build up the recognition to make sure it's pretty good because you don't want them finding things that are not real. But they know they can find a receipt apparently. Then if you're searching for people, this is quite nice. You get the people result, but now the people card actually, rather than going off to Delve then to find all the other information about the person, you then basically get the people card, which is interactive. So if you then click on files, for instance, you see all the files they've recently worked on, so you don't have to leave the search interface. The idea is things come to you rather than you having to go to different places. And then you can use Bing instead, right?
Bing for what? Bing
for business.
Business.
Bing for business. So effectively, I imagine it would be like a different URL or something. But what it will do is use the graph to go and get data from your intranet, as well as give you Bing results as well. And then you'll be able to go in here and see images from your intranet, and you'll be able to see people from the intranet and all sorts of other content, but all in one place. So you can point your employees to this and tell them to stop using Google because it's far much better. We'll see how this works out. Imagine people going in a Bing and going, "Oh, my content's turned up from the intranet. Can you turn it off?" Yeah. Everyone in the world can see our stuff. No, that's Bing for Business. What? Couldn't we call it something else rather than add just for business to the end of it? Yeah. Right. I keep going. Security and governance. Well, actually, this is kind of some other bits and pieces. From an admin perspective, they're updating the SharePoint interface at last. It's been years, it's looked exactly the same, but they're now actually making it a bit more like the Office 365 experience. So our SharePoint admins can actually feel like we're real admin people, like Office 365 admin people, and we get nice little graphs and charts of how things are being used, and a little message center of updates to our SharePoint stuff. So we feel grown up. There was also they've finally updated the site management list, and it actually is a list, so you can filter it and sort it and say which columns you want to see, and it actually shows the SharePoint sites that are behind groups, so we can stop using PowerShell to manage all that stuff. So you'll actually list all of those, and you can actually click on them, and you can take multiple actions on them as well. So you can pick a bunch of them and say enable external sharing or something like that, right? Yeah, so you don't need to learn PowerShell. Yes, you do. I love this one. Site level conditional access. So basically what you'll be able to do is say different types of sites have different conditions applied based on maybe the device or the location of the user as to what they're allowed to do in that site at that time. So maybe if I'm on the internal network, go to the legal site, part of the legal team, I can do everything on that site, sync it, download content, edit content. But if I take my laptop away and I connect to through an internet cafe or in an airport or something like that, it will say, actually, I don't trust this connection as much as my internal network, therefore conditional access applies, and now I'm going to restrict what you can do on this site. Right? Whereas at the moment it's kind of a blanket across everything. You just go any site, I don't care, like here's the conditional access that applies, but you're able to do it site by site. So you can still have some open sites like your intranet where you're not too bothered about, and people can access those over the public internet, but more sort of confidential type sites, you could apply conditional access. You'll be able to has anyone got a global company here? Yeah, maybe able to geolocate your OneDrive and apparently your email, so that if you've got people in Europe who need to have their data held locally, you'll be able to geolocate their data to that location rather than it being stored in a central location. This also applies to YAML data as well, so you'll be able to push the YAML data to.
Does this involve tenants? So, for example, if I'm working with a New Zealand company that's got a global head office, and they want one account, can they split the tenant so they can have a?
It'll still be one tenant, but
it's
spread across.
So they can geolocate their stuff into Australia while the head office is faffing around in Europe.
Yep.
So is that available today?
No.
No.
And in fact, they talked about it at the MVP Summit last November.
Yeah.
So
my understanding is at least been a year away.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's kind of
and they've got to hook up search as well to make sure that works across there, and a whole bunch of other.
Okay. There's a bunch of New Zealand companies pretty interested in that.
People can store their OneDrive when they screw it up, because there's always a user fault that their OneDrive screwed up. But if they get a virus on their machine and it decides to corrupt everything and sync all their files back to OneDrive, they can then say, I'd like to go back. I'd like to go back to a point in time, and as they drag the point in time backwards, it shows the files and file names and when they're updated. So they can see, all that stuff got updated on that date. That's not what I did on that day. I'll go back to the date when it's not all changed to what it's not meant to be, and then restore it. And they'll probably restore over stuff they didn't want to, but that's their fault. If you bring your own key, you'll be able to take your own key away. Sounds obvious, but basically the services will actually use your key to be able to unlock files that it stores, so Office files and things like that. So if you take your key away, those files are no longer accessible. right? So they can't be accessed by the Office 365 service. So if you know that someone's made a request to view your data, just take your key away, and then Microsoft can't actually access the data either. So you're pretty secure-ish. They're consolidating the labels. I did a session on Azure Information Protection a while ago, and there's like a bunch of classifications in there. And then Microsoft doing a bunch of labeling over here in 365. So now they're actually the same labels. So you can, for a classification type, you can apply retention policies and things to the same named label rather than two different labels. For content, there's a little migration tool for users to use. Some people have used this with various experiences. The word preview, I think, is definitely something that don't use this in production yet, but you can try it out. And it's only useful for like people that are sort of self-migrating to Office 365, or where you're just delegating it out to business users to do this. I have a couple of customers in that situation. And you can give them this rather than some of the other more complex tools that are on the market that they'd have to install something on their machine that's quite large. They're updating Office apps. There'll be a 2019 Office apps. Actually, I didn't mention there's a 2019 SharePoint server for anyone who wants to upgrade again. You're quite welcome to. Who knows what it'll be after 2019? There'll be another big discussion.
The year for SharePoint 2013 to 2019, you have to go through 2016.
Oh, you always have to go through the middle version because you should have been keeping up anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. There will be dip. Remember there used to be. There's used to be a little thing across the top that disappeared in Office 2016. That'll show you the properties from the SharePoint site, and then you can set those, and you can embed tags in the document and change all that stuff. And then it disappeared because InfoPath essentially disappeared. So that kind of disappeared. And you had to go to File and Advanced Properties, and users used to have to go in there. So they're going to bring the document information panel back. It's kind of like an app. I did think about building this a while ago. It's the same in the time now, because it wouldn't be too hard to actually do.
So is that a new Office version then, or is that
no, that'd be an update to 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, you won't have to wait till 2019. Although 2019 is actually only next year. 2019 isn't actually a year after.
No, it's last quarter.
Yeah, it's last quarter of next year's 2019. Yeah. And then there's an adoption score thing coming, so you can see how well people are actually adopted. You've got the Power BI content pack, which gives you some sort of guide, but this is sort of how people are actually using it. So are people actually sharing documents, and do they comment on other people's documents? Are they co-authoring on documents? So no, we'll have to collect all the data anyway. And it's probably
Power BI pack.
Yeah, you can use the Power BI one.
I've seen which one is these ones.
No, this is.
These are pre-release, huh?
Yeah, this will be like February.
But that's only in admin.
No, so there's a new role called the reporting viewer reader role. Who'll be able to see all of the content pack stuff and all of the usage reporting stuff. Yeah. I think this is going to be an E5 thing.
All right.
Because there's some stuff in here about meetings, which is currently the E5 My Analytics stuff, and I think this will probably be E5. But you'll be able to connect to the API and actually pull the data down all yourself, and then just use a bit of Power BI and actually do your own merges and mashups and create your own data. So that'll be available as well in about the March timeframe. So you can actually merge it with other data sets and things you have from other systems, whether it's HR systems or something like that, to be able to create your own reports rather than just the ones provided in the content pack. And then a whole bunch of other admin portal updates. They're going to streamline a whole bunch of processes. They're going to actually enable you to actually have your own links in the menu on the left to common things you do. The one I like with a streamlined process, when someone leaves, you'll actually be able to, when they leave, reassign their OneDrive to somebody else. You'll actually be able to change their mailbox into a shared mailbox and add other people into it. So basically everything you need to do when someone leaves in one interface is a kind of next rather than a lengthy process of going into different systems, which is really nice. And they're going to have these recommendation things. So they're going to recommend people don't change their passwords ever again. That's what I heard. because if they don't change them ever again, they set really long passwords apparently. So that's the new recommendation. But when they recommend something, they'll tell you why it's recommended, point you to a white paper and some other details and things, and then give the ability to take action.
I don't know about you, but if you set a password of like 12 characters and keep it forever, then cool, because it's one that you always remember, it's one you always use. But if you want to change it, for people who have to change every 180 days or some companies, it's ridiculous.
They just change a few characters.
Yeah.
Is that now or later, Alan?
Which one?
That list is that.
Oh, that list is kind of later. Most of that's later. Yeah. Yammer. We'll finish on Yammer.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll have time for Teams. So, new concept, and I think we'll do this in a separate Yammer session. But essentially, they see this kind of concept as there's this inner loop, which is your Teams area, your groups, your like SharePoint site that only has a few members to it, right, or a subset of the company. And then within there, that's maybe where you make some initial decisions, come up with some ideas, working on a project or something like that. But if you want to reach a larger community and get more input and more feedback, that's the outer loop. So where Yammer sits is in the outer loop, not in the inner loop. So why they added 365 group integration to Yammer, I'm uncertain, because that makes it an inner loop. But anyway, it's an outer loop. But it makes it a bit easier kind of when you have discussions around where does Yammer fit. It's this kind of wider reach. Kind of
Teams is on the inner loop, great.
Teams is an inner loop, because you need to know who you're communicating with, and it's a subset of people. You're not going to have the whole organization because you want to get everyone's feedback to your team. Right? When you upload a file, it'll actually go into the SharePoint site if it's connected to it, rather than into the files inside of Yammer. That'll be good. They can actually create some analytics themselves, so you'll be able to see how well your group's going. Are people using your group? Do they care? Should I just switch this group off? Because no one's interested. And then a whole bunch of other stuff that all sounded interesting, but may or may not, some of it could happen. I'm not too sure about the bot framework integration. Unified profiles, that'd be lovely. That'd be nice to have that in one place. And the DLP and e-discovery and Lockbox, they need to do that. That's like one of the reasons why a lot of people don't use it. Geolocation already talked about, so they're going to move Yammer all over the place, so you'll be able to have it hosted in Australia at least. Not in New Zealand, unfortunately. And then other things they're talking about is being able to do the best answer. I quite like that. So actually, which was the best answer out of everyone who replied to this post, which a lot of communities and forums have. They're going to do more news integration, so there goes another customization I keep building. They'll do, they'll add a tab to go into Microsoft Teams. And I actually quite like this last one if they ever get around to it, where you can actually say, hey, this Yammer post is like a really cool idea. Let's pass it through some process where we actually sort of track its status and update it as to whether it's like, hey, it's gone through and we're looking at it and it's now in development and we're planning and now we're implementing, that sort of thing.
Is that more of a leadership initiative, or is it going to be self-generating?
Well, it'd be initially sort of people, it's trying to do that idea generation, ideation type of thing. Yeah.
Like if you have about 12 people respond to a particular posting with good ideas, best answers maybe.
Yeah, upvote, that sort of thing.
Yeah, number of likes, you could do it. It's really up to you, I think, after that point. It's just being able to actually track it through. At the moment, we've built things that like kind of grab them based on the hashtags and use Flow to stick them somewhere else and track them over there, and then never updates the Yammer post, and it's all a bit disconnected. And that was it.
So we've run a bit over, but we'll have a couple of skill questions to get some swag.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Daniel's thought of a question for his Azure session.
Yeah, so what was my storage key?
ZXY.
It ended in equals.
How many gigs of storage? Whoever said the first, there you go.
We'll go with the person at the back who said 6. Yeah.
Well done.
This is an XL, but with that. Oh. No. How about the short? How about the smaller one? Yeah. That's a shirt. That's a sleeve. Give it to kids. Yeah. Alan,
Well, I
skill
didn't
question
think about
from
it.
your session?
Well, what do you remember out of my session? You can ask a question.
SharePoint's being revamped.
Yeah, been revamped. Okay, how many items can you display when you're scrolling or whatever?
50 million.
30 million. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. You're a smaller guy too. How about you take the book? All right. Hit refresh. Yes. It's not signed.
Oh.
Who's Excel? Who's Excel size here that this appeals to? Okay, so skill question for mine. How many minutes did it take to walk from the north-south building to the west building?
20.
15.
10 hard font slides.
Too long.
Too long. Yeah, too long. Who said too long? All right, you're too long. Good. Awesome. Thanks for hanging about, because that was a long one.
Yeah.
But we do want to point you towards various different resources to keep up to date, to watch all the videos. techcommunity.microsoft.com has all the sessions, has all the discussions around the sessions, the slide decks. If you're not already in there, that's where you should be to pick up on things that happened at Ignite. Thanks everyone for attending. We've got no idea what we're doing next month.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to the team stuff.
Yeah, because it was laced through so much stuff, it actually makes sense to do it.
Can you remember how to turn it off?
Oh, yeah.
That was
I saw that.
Now that she was on the meta group as well as I actually posted on.
Yeah, I saw that, and I haven't, because so you're moving. The thing is, I wouldn't tell you what the best way to do it was. I mean, you
On
could.
the standard VM, you kind of do a template,
Yeah.
and then you, as you copy the disk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could.
But on a SQL though, it's a bit different.
Yeah, on Azure SQL, because you're not going to have access to the disk itself.
Yeah.
You could create you could even create an always-on Azure cluster, and actually join the two things and allow